In a galaxy far beyond Earth, an alien queen named Xylora ruled with unmatched power. She was tall and elegant, her shimmering silver skin glowing under the light of countless stars. Her empire stretched across hundreds of planets, each one bowing to her commands. People called her the Eternal Empress, for no one dared to challenge her authority, except for one species, humans. Humans were strange compared to other beings in the galaxy. They weren't as strong as the Kragthar warriors or as smart as the Xenorians who built amazing machines. Their technology was basic, almost laughable compared to Xylora's advanced fleet of warships. Yet humans had something no one else did. They refused to surrender. No matter how many times Xylora sent her armies to conquer Earth, the humans fought back fiercely. It confused her. How could such weak creatures stand against her mighty forces? From her throne room aboard the colossal starship Ecliptica, Xylora stared at a holographic map of the galaxy. Earth glowed red on the map, marking it as the only planet still resisting her rule. Around her, advisors whispered suggestions about crushing humanity once and for all. Send more ships, one said. Bomb their cities. Another urged, but Xylora stayed silent. Something about humans made her uneasy. Every time she thought about them, a strange feeling crept into her mind, a mix of curiosity and fear. Her chief advisor, Vorthak, noticed her hesitation. He stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Your Majesty, why do you hesitate? These humans are nothing. We have conquered races far stronger than them. Xylora turned to him, her golden eyes sharp like daggers. You don't understand, she said softly. They are different. They don't follow logic. They don't give up when they should. And they always find ways to surprise us. Vorthak frowned. Surprises can be dealt with swiftly, my queen. Let me lead the next attack. I will show you that humans are no match for our might. But Xylora shook her head. Memories flashed through her mind. Images of past battles where human fighters had destroyed her ships using clever tricks instead of brute force. Once, a single human pilot flew a tiny spacecraft straight into the heart of her armada, causing chaos before disappearing into the void. Another time, rebels used primitive explosives to disable an entire battalion of her elite soldiers. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability scared her. She leaned back in her throne, thinking deeply. Somewhere in her vast empire, there had to be answers. Why were humans so different? What gave them their courage? She decided to dig deeper, ordering her scientists to study everything they could about these peculiar beings. Until then, she would keep her distance from Earth, watching and waiting. Little did Xylora know, the humans were preparing too. On a distant blue-green planet, a group of rebels was planning their next move. They didn't know it yet, but their actions would soon bring them face to face with the most powerful ruler in the galaxy, and change the fate of the universe forever. On Earth, far from the glittering halls of Xylora's empire, a group of rebels worked tirelessly to fight back against her rule. Their leader was Captain Ilara Voss, a brave and determined woman who had once served in Earth's military. After years of losing battles and watching her people suffer under alien occupation, Ilara decided enough was enough. She gathered a small team of fighters, ordinary men and women who shared her desire for freedom. And together, they became Earth's last hope. Ilara's team operated from hidden bases deep underground, away from Xylora's watchful eyes. They called themselves the Phoenix, because like the mythical bird, they rose again every time they were knocked down. Each member brought something unique to the group. There was Kian, a tech genius who could hack into alien systems, Mara, a sharpshooter with nerves of steel, and Tarek, a former engineer who knew how to build weapons out of scraps. Together, they planned daring missions to sabotage Xylora's forces and inspire others to join their cause. One evening, the team gathered around a flickering holographic map in their dimly lit hideout. Ilara stood at the center, pointing to a cluster of red dots representing Xylora's supply routes. These ships carry weapons and fuel to her armies, she explained. If we can destroy them, we'll weaken her grip on our planet. But how? Asked Mara, crossing her arms. Her ships are heavily guarded. We'd need a miracle to get close enough. Ilara smiled faintly. We don't need miracles. We need courage and brains. That's what makes us human. The plan was risky, using an old damaged spaceship salvaged from a junkyard. The team would disguise themselves as traders delivering supplies to one of Zilara's outposts. Once inside, they would plant explosives and escape before anyone realized what was happening. It wasn't foolproof, but it was their best chance. As the days passed, tensions ran high. Kian spent hours tweaking their ship's engines, making sure it wouldn't break down mid-mission. Tarek built makeshift bombs using whatever materials he could find. Meanwhile, Ilara trained the team relentlessly, pushing them to be ready for anything. Despite their determination, doubts lingered in everyone's minds. What if they failed? What if this mission cost them everything? Finally, the night of the operation arrived. The team boarded their rickety ship, its hull patched with scrap metal and painted to look like a harmless cargo vessel. As they approached the outpost, Kaan activated a device that mimicked the signals used by Xylara's traders. The guards scanned their ship briefly before waving them through. So far, so good. Inside the outpost, the air buzzed with activity. Alien soldiers patrolled the corridors while crates of weapons and fuel were loaded onto massive warships. Ilara led her team quietly, sticking to the shadows. One by one, they planted explosives near key targets: a fuel depot, a communication tower, and a weapons cache. Just as they finished setting the last bomb, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Someone had spotted them. Move. Now. Ilara shouted, pulling out her blaster. The team sprinted toward their ship, firing at pursuing guards. Bullets whizzed past their heads, and explosions rocked the ground beneath their feet. Mara covered the rear, taking down enemies with precise shots. Tarek stumbled but got back up, clutching a bag of stolen data chips that might hold valuable information about Xylara's plans. They reached the ship just as the first bombs detonated, sending flames and smoke billowing into the sky. Kaan fired up the engines, and the ship roared to life. As they escaped into the stars, the team looked back at the burning outpost. "We did it," whispered Mara, her voice filled with awe. Ilara nodded, but her expression remained serious. This victory was important, but it was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, Xylara was still watching and waiting. Back at their hidden base, the team celebrated their successful mission. The outpost explosion had dealt a significant blow to Xylara's forces, disrupting supply lines and boosting morale among Earth's rebels. But Ilara wasn't in the mood to celebrate. She sat alone in her small office, staring at the stolen data chips Tarek had grabbed during their escape. Something about them felt important, too important to ignore. "Ilara," Kaan said, stepping into the room. "You should take a break. You've been working nonstop since we got back." "I can't," she replied without looking up. "There's something here, something we need to understand. If we're going to beat Xylara, we have to know why she fears us so much." Kian nodded and pulled up a chair beside her. Together, they inserted the chips into an old computer salvaged from the ruins of a human city. Lines of alien text scrolled across the screen, too complex for either of them to decipher. After hours of frustration, Kian managed to crack part of the encryption. What they found shocked them both. The files contained ancient records, stories written by Xylara's ancestors about their first encounter with humans thousands of years ago. Back then, humanity was nothing more than scattered tribes living in caves and forests. According to the documents, Xylara's people had arrived on Earth during a cosmic event that opened a temporary portal between galaxies. They thought humans were primitive and weak, easy to dominate. But things didn't go as planned. When the aliens tried to claim Earth's resources, the humans fought back, not with advanced weapons or technology, but with fire, traps, and sheer determination. Tribes united against the invaders, using clever tactics to drive them away. One account described how a group of humans lured an entire squad of alien soldiers into a valley rigged with pitfalls and flaming arrows. Another told of a lone hunter who destroyed a landing craft using nothing but rocks and courage. Over time, these stories became legends among Xylara's people. Humans earned the nickname, the Unpredictable Ones, creatures who refused to bow even when faced with overwhelming odds. Eventually, the aliens abandoned Earth, labeling it as cursed. But the memory of those early defeats lingered, passed down through generations, until it became a deep-rooted fear embedded in their culture. Ilara leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. "So that's why Xylara is scared of us," she murmured. "She thinks we're dangerous because of what happened long ago." Kayan frowned. "But that was thousands of years ago. We're not those same people anymore. Look at us. We're barely surviving." "That's exactly why this matters," Ilara said firmly. "Xylara sees us as a threat because she doesn't understand us. To her, we're still unpredictable. And if we use that to our advantage, maybe we can win." Inspired by the discovery, Ilara called the team together. She shared the ancient stories and explained her plan. Instead of just attacking Xylara's forces head-on, they would focus on psychological warfare. They would remind Xylara, and everyone else, of humanity's greatest strength, their ability to adapt, innovate, and never give up. "We'll show her that humans haven't changed," Ilara declared. "We're still the same fighters who drove her ancestors away. And this time, we won't stop until we're free." The team agreed, their spirits lifted by the revelation. For the first time, they felt like they weren't just fighting for survival, they were reclaiming their legacy. As preparations began for their next mission, Ilara couldn't shake off one lingering thought. What if Xylara already knew all this? What if her fear wasn't just about the past, but also about the future? The team's next mission was their most dangerous yet. Ilara had decided to strike at the heart of Xylara's empire, a heavily guarded space station, where a new superweapon was being developed. This weapon, codenamed Eclipse, was said to be capable of destroying entire planets with a single blast. If it was completed, Earth would stand no chance. "This is suicide," Mara muttered as they reviewed the plans in their hideout. "Even if we get inside, how do we get out alive?" "We don't have a choice," Ilara replied firmly. "If Eclipse becomes operational, humanity is finished. We can't let that happen." Tarek nodded, his hands busy assembling explosives. "She's right. Besides, I didn't join this fight to sit back and watch Earth burn." Kayan tapped on his tablet, showing the team a holographic map of the space station. "Here's the plan. We'll dock on the lower level, where security is lighter. From there, we split into two groups. Ilara and I will head for the control room to disable the weapons core. Mara and Tarek will plant charges in the power grid to cut off the station's defenses." "It sounds simple enough," Mara said sarcastically. "Until we run into an army of aliens who want to kill us." Ilara gave her a small smile. "That's why we stick together and trust each other. We've done impossible things before. We'll do it again." The team loaded their gear onto a stolen alien shuttle, disguising themselves as maintenance workers. As they approached the space station, Kayan transmitted fake identification codes to trick the guards. The ruse worked. The docking bay doors opened, and they slipped inside unnoticed. Once aboard, the team moved cautiously through dimly lit corridors. The air smelled metallic, and the hum of machinery echoed around them. They avoided patrols by sticking to shadows and using Kayan's hacking skills to disable surveillance cameras. But as they neared their objectives, things started to go wrong. In the power grid chamber, Carrick and Mara encountered a group of alien engineers performing routine checks. Thinking quickly, Mara fired a stun bolt, knocking out one of the aliens. The others turned toward the sound, weapons drawn. "Now," Tarek shouted, throwing smoke grenades to obscure their position. While chaos erupted, Mara planted the charges, setting the timer for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, Ilara and Kian reached the control room, only to find it locked down with biometric security. Kian worked furiously to bypass the system, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Just as he succeeded, alarms blared throughout the station. "They know we're here," Ilara yelled, pulling out her blaster. Dozens of alien soldiers poured into the corridor, firing energy bolts that sizzled past their heads. Ilara returned fire, taking cover behind a console. "Kian, hurry. I'm almost done," Kian shouted, typing commands into the control panel. With a final keystroke, the superweapon's core began to destabilize. Red warning lights flashed, and a robotic voice announced, "Core failure imminent. Evacuate immediately." "Let's move," Ilara ordered, grabbing Kian's arm. They regrouped with Mara and Tarek near the docking bay, but escape wasn't easy. Alien reinforcements blocked their path, forcing the team to fight their way through. Tarek took a hit to his leg, but kept moving, gritting his teeth against the pain. Mara covered their retreat, her steady aim taking down enemy after enemy. Finally, they'd reached the shuttle. As they lifted off, the space station exploded behind them, a fiery ball of destruction lighting up the darkness of space. "We did it," Tarek gasped, collapsing into his seat. But Ilara stared out the window, her expression grim. Destroying the weapon was a victory, but she knew it wouldn't stop Xylara. The real battle was just beginning. The destruction of the space station sent shockwaves through Xylara's empire. News of the failed superweapon reached her flagship, the Ecliptica, and for the first time in centuries, doubt clouded her mind. She summoned her advisors to the throne room, but their reassurances fell flat. Humanity had proven itself once again, unpredictable, relentless, and dangerous. "They are nothing more than pests," Vorthak insisted, his voice trembling with frustration. "Let me lead a full-scale assault on Earth. We'll crush them completely." "No," Xylara said sharply, rising from her throne. Her golden eyes glowed with intensity. "This isn't about brute force anymore. It's about understanding why they keep surprising us, why they refuse to break." Deep down, she knew the answer lay in humanity's spirit, the same spark that had driven her ancestors away millennia ago. But this realization didn't bring clarity. It brought fear. Fear of what humans might achieve if left unchecked. Fear of losing control over her empire. And fear of facing the truth that perhaps her reign wasn't as unshakable as she believed. Meanwhile, Ilara and her team were celebrating their victory aboard their ship. For the first time in months, laughter filled the air. Kian joked about how close they'd come to getting caught, while Mara teased Tarek about limping around like an old man. Even Tarek managed a weak smile, despite his injured leg. But Ilara remained quiet, staring at the stars outside the viewport. "What's wrong?" Mara asked, noticing her silence. "We've dealt them a blow," Ilara replied, "but we haven't won yet. As long as Xylara is out there, humanity will never be safe. To end this war, we need to confront her directly." Her words silenced the room. The idea of facing the alien queen herself seemed impossible, even reckless. Yet no one argued. They trusted Ilara's instincts, even when the odds felt insurmountable. Using stolen intel, the team tracked Xylara's flagship to a remote corner of the galaxy. Disguising their ship as a damaged cargo vessel, they approached cautiously. When challenged by the flagship's crew, Kian transmitted a fake distress signal claiming their ship was carrying valuable resources. The ruse worked, and they were granted permission to dock. Inside the Ecliptica, the team moved carefully, avoiding patrols and staying hidden. Finally, they'd reached the throne room, a vast chamber filled with shimmering light and towering columns. At its center stood Xylara, her silver skin glowing softly under the illumination. "Who dares intrude upon my domain?" she demanded, her voice resonating like thunder. Ilara stepped forward, her blaster aimed steadily at the Queen. I am Captain Ilara Voss, leader of Earth's resistance, and I'm here to tell you that your reign of terror ends now. For a moment, Silara simply stared at her, studying her face. Then she smiled, a cold, calculating expression. You humans, always so bold, so defiant, do you truly believe you can stand against me? We already have, Ilara shot back. Your weapons couldn't stop us. Your armies couldn't break us. And your fear of us proves one thing, you're not invincible. Silara's smile faltered. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. She had spent centuries ruling through fear and domination, but humanity refused to bow. Their courage unsettled her in ways she couldn't explain. Before either could act, alarms blared throughout the ship. The guards had discovered the intruders. Within moments, the throne room was surrounded by armed soldiers. You're outnumbered, Ilara said, regaining her composure. Surrender now, and I may spare your lives. Ilara glanced at her team, then back at Ilara. With a fierce determination burning in her eyes, she said, we don't surrender, not to you, not to anyone. And with that, chaos erupted. Blasts of energy lit up the room as Ilara and her team fought valiantly against overwhelming odds. Each shot fired brought them closer to freedom or death. The battle in the throne room was fierce and chaotic. Energy bolts zipped through the air, striking walls and sending sparks flying. Ilara and her team fought with everything they had, their movements sharp and calculated despite being outnumbered. Mara's aim remained deadly, taking down enemy soldiers one by one. Tarek, though injured, used his strength to hurl debris at advancing guards, buying them precious seconds. Kian hacked into the flagship systems, disabling doors and trapping reinforcements outside the chamber. But even with their combined efforts, the odds were stacked against them. Ilara watched from her throne, her expression unreadable as her soldiers closed in on the rebels. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Ilara made a daring move. She sprinted toward Ilara, dodging blasts and leaping over fallen enemies. Stop her, Vorthak shouted, but it was too late. Ilara reached Ilara and pressed her blaster against the Queen's chest. The room fell silent, every eye fixed on the two leaders. You've underestimated us for too long, Ilara said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Your empire is built on fear, but humans don't bow to tyrants. Silara raised an eyebrow, unfazed by the weapon pointed at her heart. You think killing me will solve anything? My people will rise up stronger than ever. You'll never escape this ship alive. I don't need to kill you, Ilara replied. I just need to show you that humanity isn't afraid of you or your empire. Before anyone could react, Kain activated a device he'd been secretly setting up during the fight. A holographic projection filled the room, showing images of Earth's resistance fighters, men, women, and children standing together, united in defiance. It wasn't just about weapons or battles. It was about hope, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. This is who we are, Ilara said firmly. No matter what you do, we'll keep fighting. And eventually, your empire will crumble under the weight of its own cruelty. For a long moment, Ilara said nothing. Her golden eyes scanned the hologram, lingering on the faces of those who dared to oppose her. Then, slowly, she lowered herself back onto her throne. Enough, she said quietly, raising a hand to signal her soldiers to stand down. Vorthak stepped forward, shocked. My queen, what are you doing? I've seen enough, Ilara replied, her voice heavy with emotion. These humans, they remind me of what we once were. Wild, untamed, unwilling to give up. Perhaps I've been wrong to rule through fear alone. Ilara lowered her blaster, surprised but cautious. What happens now? Silara looked at her, a flicker of respect in her gaze. Now, I step aside, not because I'm defeated, but because I see no other way forward. Your species has proven itself worthy of something greater than conquest." With those words, Scylla surrendered her throne, ordering her forces to withdraw from Earth and its surrounding territories. News of her decision spread quickly across the galaxy, sparking rebellions among planets long oppressed by her rule. Humanity became a symbol of resilience, inspiring others to rise up and demand freedom. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of Scylla's retreat reached the planet. Ilara and her team were hailed as heroes, their names forever etched in history. But Ilara knew the fight wasn't truly over. Rebuilding the galaxy wouldn't be easy, and old wounds would take time to heal. Still, she felt a glimmer of hope, a chance for peace after centuries of war. As she stood on a hill overlooking her battered but beautiful world, Ilara whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." Months passed since Scylla's surrender, and the galaxy began to heal. The once oppressive empire crumbled, giving way to a fragile but hopeful new order. Planets that had lived under fear and control now celebrated their freedom. Resistance groups from across the stars joined forces with humanity, inspired by Ilara's courage and leadership. Together, they worked to rebuild what had been destroyed, not just cities and infrastructure, but trust, unity, and hope. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The scars of war remained visible in bombed-out buildings and empty fields where forests used to stand. Yet amidst the ruins, signs of renewal sprouted like wildflowers after a storm. People planted crops again, rebuilt homes, and told stories of survival around campfires at night. For the first time in generations, laughter echoed through streets without the shadow of alien occupation hanging over them. Ilara became a symbol of this new era. Though she never asked for fame, her name was spoken with reverence wherever humans gathered. She traveled between planets, meeting leaders and ordinary citizens alike, listening to their struggles and dreams. Her message was simple yet powerful. We are stronger together. Scylla, now stripped of her power, chose to stay on Earth instead of returning to her people. At first, many humans distrusted her presence, fearing it might be a trick. But over time, they saw how much she had changed. She spent her days helping rebuild shattered communities, using her knowledge of advanced technology to improve lives. Some whispered that she felt guilty for her past actions. Others believed she simply wanted redemption. Whatever her reasons, Scylla proved herself willing to work alongside those she once ruled. One day, Ilara found Scylla working in a field outside a small village. The former queen wore plain clothes, her shimmering silver skin dulled by dirt and sweat. She looked up as Ilara approached, wiping her hands on her trousers. "You've done well," Scylla said, gesturing toward the thriving crops around them. "This planet has a way of healing itself and its people." Ilara nodded. "It's not just Earth. The whole galaxy is learning to heal. Thanks to you, too." Scylla shook her head. "Don't thank me. I only followed your example. You showed me that strength isn't about domination. It's about resilience, compassion, and hope." The two women stood side by side, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. They didn't speak much, but their shared silence carried a deep understanding. Both had fought on opposite sides of a war, yet both now worked toward the same goal, a better future. Elsewhere in the galaxy, alliances formed between species that had once been enemies. Trade routes reopened, bringing prosperity to struggling worlds. Scientists collaborated on projects to restore damaged ecosystems, while artists shared their cultures through music, art, and storytelling. Humanity played a central role in these efforts, admired not just for its bravery, but for its creativity and adaptability. Still, challenges remained. Old prejudices lingered, and some factions resisted change, clinging to the ways of the past. But Ilara refused to give up. Every setback was met with determination. Every obstacle turned into an opportunity to grow stronger. As she stood aboard a newly built spaceship preparing for another journey, Ilara reflected on how far they'd come. The road ahead would still be difficult, but she knew one thing for certain. humanity, and the galaxy had found its spark again. "Ready?" Kian asked, stepping onto the ship behind her. Ilara smiled. "Always." With that, the engines roared to life, carrying her toward the stars and whatever adventures awaited beyond.